Hey, Liron here. Thank you for joining me in today's video. It's been a while. I want to show you how to paint a mess today. So when you have a subject that has a lot of interesting details in it, um, you don't always have to draw everything and plan everything out and think about all of the things and how they're going to work in one go. You can kind of try your hand at different areas and slowly build them. This is something that it has nothing to do with having experience, even if you don't have experience, even if you're just a beginner to watercolor. It's not about that. You can do that no matter how long you've been doing it. It's more about feeling by the moment what you want to put in terms of details. And I want to show you how I'm doing this. So I am starting with a very basic sketch. This is mostly just so that I don't lose the overall proportions. I could have just gone for it and worked shape by shape. I actually considered doing this with no sketch, but I ended up doing this sketch because I felt like I'm going to lose myself in that rounded shape of that wheel, whatever that is, you know, an old tractor wheel base, whatever. So yeah, the way I would have painted it had I not drawn is the exact same thing. I would probably start there in this nice, rich, dark shadow under the tire. Now, the more details I'm going to add, the more it's going to make sense to you. But basically, what we're looking at is a very rustic metal color, but it's also very dark, very much in the shadow. It's a little more neutral than what it would look like if it was in the light. Like you can tell the parts in the light are a little brighter orange. That's the kind of thing you want to pay attention to. Again, the drawing was very basic just so that I can orient myself around painting. So one of the things is when I'm working this way is when I'm working on a shape, I'm all in on that shape. So you'll see me editing this area, making sure it looks right, that I get this jagged edge pattern, and only when I'm happy with what I have will I start branching out and connecting it to different shapes. Sometimes the shape I'm working on will dry and I won't merge it with any shape at all. That can also happen. That's the thing when you work in this way. You don't necessarily merge everything, and I talked about this at length when discussing larger pieces. There's no way you can merge everything together, and a lot of people, this is my test paper down below, a lot of people are very scared of that. You can merge whatever you want. You can merge nothing. To me, it's almost happenstance. If it works for the next thing I want to paint, I'll merge it. If it doesn't, I won't. If I do want a separation, then even if it works, I won't. You know, that's just on a moment by moment basis, really. There is no way of giving a hard rule for how I would do this. What I did decide to do here is branch from that dark shadow under the tire onto these metal pieces, connecting it to the center. And these are beautiful shadows. You know, they're very orangey, muted shadows. They're a little more orange than what I painted them there. And that's something that I misread just a bit. It's not a big percentage of me being off. It's a small percentage. And I find it's negligible. It's not that important. Now from there, I'm going to branch into the actual mass of that metal piece that is in the sunlight. Now, funny enough, it looks very light in the picture. I've actually gone too light in the painting. I'll have another go at it over it later on. It is quite orange though. It is a relatively bright color. Now, you know, it's very easy to look at a color and feel intimidated. How will I mix, especially with my palette, if you look at the way it looks, how will I mix this kind of a dark color? Well, you can rest assured it really isn't the context. So when you see these orange metal pieces, they look brighter, but that's just the context of the environment. Everything around them is muted, so they look a little brighter. Actually, not that bright, and you'll be able to mix them very easily. It's very rare to have a color that you cannot mix with just the basic primary colors. And talking about colors, I'm using here Pyrrole Scarlet, Phthalo Blue, Neutral Tint, and a bit of lemon yellow. That's pretty much it. Maybe a bit of French ultramarine just to balance things out, but that's pretty much what I'm using here. And you can mix almost anything you see here, even the bright green. You'll see I don't need it to be as bright. Later on, you'll see that is the part that gave me some trouble. It really is that there are very few colors that you're going to struggle. Like, how am I going to mix that? And it's all in the context. We'll see more of the context fall in as we continue adding pieces. Now what you see here is a very rusted kind of I don't know if it's a piece of an engine or something. I don't know. Someone in the comments will let me know. I'm going to zoom in a bit so you can see more of the details. But I love the way where the rust sets, or maybe it's rain that kind of removed some of the paint. It looks very neutral and looks very gray. And that gray further makes the reds look red. So again, it all works in the context. Things that are gray here almost appear blue because everything else is so warm. And that's a part of the feel that the whole painting as a whole provides. Now, what I'm looking at right now is what's the next interesting detail I can paint. And to me, that is definitely that side of the wheel that is hit by light, and then it goes very gradually into a shadow. So what you see there is a bit of a muted brown that turns into a orange that then reverts back into a rusty brown, all the way down to the bottom where it becomes more neutral. It almost looks a little orangey brown towards the bottom, and then it sets into just a black color where it really gets close to the base. And that gradualness is part of what will provide that feeling of a tire, a rounded shape, and where light hits at different angles. One thing to note is people are scared of these washes where you start with one color, you slowly gradate into another and another and another. I will do another video on this soon, just kind of a basic technique thing. But the thing is, just look at what you're painting. If it's wet enough, you have time. Don't worry about it. You have time. The edges are still wet. You can take your time building these, especially when it's such a thin strip of paint. I'm talking about what we just did earlier with the tire, not this area down below. You have time. Just look at it. You'll see. Is it still wet enough to work with? Move the paper. Look at it in the light. And if it's not, that's okay. You let it dry, take a pause, or you want to just go for it, see what happens. When you place very wet paint near a wash that's almost dry, you'll get some interesting effects, for sure. There's this danger zone, but the thing about the danger zone is not a zone to avoid. That's the key, and I don't think I mentioned this too much before. It's not a zone to avoid, but rather a zone to be aware of the fact that you will get some inconsistency in the results, some unexpected effects. It doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be undesired. They will be unexpected, and that is fine. A big part of watercolor is being unexpected. It's fun, you know. So there are some things you want to control. There are some things there's no need to control. And if you try and control everything, usually what happens is, depending on how you do it, but usually the way most people approach it, they just don't get the results they want. It's cool if you get the results you want. You controlled every factor of it. You got this specific result you want. That's great. You got whatever you want. I cannot critique that. Usually that's not what happens. So now we have this piece there. I told you it looks almost a little blue compared to the rest of the scene. Now at this stage we're starting to get what we're looking at. It's kind of a tire-like shape. The sun is hitting it. We still don't have the full context though. Once we put in the shadows behind, the green around it, it's going to start turning into something. Now this, it gets close to a turning point in the painting. These parts that I'm painting around the main, I guess, point of interest, which is the tire, I don't care as much about. It's okay if they're not perfect. What I care most about is that jagged pattern, the metal pieces connecting to the center, and these shadows behind, or dark shapes behind them. Everything else will support that. And what I hope is, when I put these areas later on, is that it will end up supporting it. That's not always what happens. Sometimes you won't get the result you want. You'll see here there are some undesired effects, or not effects, undesired composition, I guess, or undesired results. That's fine. That's a part of it. But yeah, you'll notice that this kind of metal piece behind, it almost looks a little more violet-y, purpley compared to the orange of the rest of it. So it's an interesting little color combination effect. The whole color palette of the reference photo is something I absolutely love. And by the way, I will put a link, of course, to the reference photo. This is from the Wet Canvas image library. Great references there. I chose this one under machinery. It felt like drawing something mechanical, and that's what popped up. Again, these jagged edges for the tire, they're going to dictate how the shadows behind them are going to appear. So, and this is why, by the way, I say that I feel like painting with no pencil lines has an added benefit to when you compare your painting to the reference in every stage that you do that, you're comparing a complete shape to a complete shape. Whereas with the pencil, you're starting to compare different details and areas within, and you can lose track of the overall thing. There's something very pure about comparing this finished color with that finished color. You're doing the shape, the color, the value all in one go. It just sets something free there. So although I have some pencil lines here, they're just for the purpose of not losing the composition and the proportions. They're not really to show me where to paint between the lines. And I find that has a lot of benefits to it. Now, when I'm putting this shadow, I need to take into consideration the jagged pattern. Again, this is negative painting. We're going to bring out the jagged pattern by carefully painting these shadows behind. And you see, I'm kind of gently doing it, trying to get the jagged pattern in. And it's really important because that's the thing that is going to make the lighter shapes, rather, that are front read correctly and make sense. And I will take a short break to mention that this video is sponsored by the frustration-free watercolor course. If you want to learn to paint exactly like I'm showing you here, with complete freedom, directly, boldly, get that, set yourself free. Be sure to check that out. It's going to provide you with everything you need to let go, enjoy the painting process, make the preparations necessary to make things easier when you're in the thick of it, when you're during the moments of pressure when you're painting, and there shouldn't be any pressure there. It's going to show you how to make all of this a lot easier. If you already checked that out, check out the Watercolor Realism course. That's the next one in line. I hope you'll give these a try, and back to the process now. So on with the process. And I'm going to continue with that negative shape pattern that I just showed you, painting under another part of these metal pieces. The cool thing is, at this point, you're really starting to see the shapes connect. It's not going to be a final impression yet, of course not. There's still work to be done. There's still things to balance out. That is perfectly fine. And I forgot the jagged edges here, for example, so I just skipped them. That's okay, that happens. But look at the center of the tire. To me, that's one of the coolest parts here. It just looks good. It reads as the light coming from the top right, kind of dropping harshly towards the left, bottom left. I love that kind of a pattern. And now I'm starting to put in the darker shapes there pretty directly, pretty boldly. Again, it doesn't matter to me as much if I get these perfectly accurately. It's more about them supporting the main thing. In fact, I'm probably not going to go into as many details with these shapes as I would for the main shape. Now, this is, by the way, a great preparation for if I do decide to make a more detailed version of this scene. I think it has a lot of potential. I might end up doing that. In this case, I will probably draw it out very accurately and make all the details visible for myself, but then I will paint with that exact same approach, pretty much just going directly for what I want. I'm slowly finding the happy medium between what I am planning in advance, but having me still maintain that freedom as I paint it. And we have very few details, by the way. We're just going to put in a couple of these reds in the background, and then we'll switch gears into the background behind, and then we'll switch gears to the background around for the green shapes. By the way, again, this background, just letting you know, again, new studio, still finding my bearing here, so it's still a mess. And now I finally am able to make some videos. So yeah, sorry about that break, and thank you so much for sticking around. Really do appreciate it. So yeah, putting that dark shape. Now we have two of these kind of planks of wood. I don't know exactly what it is. I feel like I could have gotten them to look a little better. I'm not sure what it was. Maybe it's just the fact that I work directly and fast. I am kind of feeling like I want to give this one another go the more I talk about it. So I may end up doing that. What I do want to express here, thank you, Ruth, is that rounded shape in what I'm showing you right now. So it goes dark, and then the more it turns upwards, right? It gets hit by the sun, and then it goes up again, less sunlight hitting it, and then it gets hit by the sun again. The way you convey these kinds of things is by shifting the value, dark to light, dark to light. Now, if you don't understand that, you will miss it. When you look at it in the reference photo, you'll just see random shapes of light and dark, which could work, by the way. But for many people, I find that just that gap in knowledge and awareness is the thing that once closed, you know how to make it work and look better in the painting itself. So sometimes it is an understanding gap, and maybe doing some diving deeper into how light and shadow works could help. You know, more knowledge in the thing that interests you is never a bad thing, I think. So yeah, a bit of a darkness there. I kind of changed the proportions there, so you see things have moved a bit. I don't have enough room for that light bit and then a stripe in it. That is okay. I'm working around the limitations I created for myself, and that is fine. And by the way, you know, looking at the finished result here, I could probably just continue working on it and making it better and better. The thing is, most paintings don't have that much mistakes in them. It's more like you could continue improving and changing them. And this is one of them. You'll see the end result, which I kind of like actually, but you'll see it. So now I'm starting to paint the background. Now what you'll notice is something I've been asked about. So it's a good opportunity to address that. Yes, some papers have a problem with the sizing, and it kind of separates. So an old piece of paper, the edges usually are the culprits. You'll see that the paint doesn't seem to be dispersed evenly. You'll notice it on the lower section of this piece of paper, and also where I'm painting right now. It's subtle. If you've ever experienced it, you'll notice it immediately, but you see there's a pattern. There's like a jagged, granulating kind of pattern. That caught me by surprise. It happens in very few of my pieces of paper. I don't remember. I never remember if it's Arch or Saunders Waterford. It could be either. Honestly, I don't remember. But you see there's dots. There's a dot pattern. That caught me by surprise. Kind of annoyed me in the moment, if I'm being honest. So I'm putting in this phthalo blue and lemon yellow, which obviously create a very vibrant green. And the thing is, the green should be darker. The grass is not that light. And so I go ahead and darken it, but then you'll see in a second, it starts to annoy me. It feels too dark, and then I'm not sure how to fix it, but then you'll see the fix in just a few seconds. But look especially below. You see these dotted pattern? If you've ever ran into this, it's not me painting unevenly. It's just the paper. It happens. It is more noticeable in large washes. When you're working small washes, you may not notice it. It's fine. It's not the end of the world. I had no idea it's going to happen. Luckily for me, it never really happened so far in a big painting. I was really putting a lot of effort and time into, except for one, and it didn't ruin it. I think it enhanced it. It was a scene from Venice where it happened. It was fine. It was fine, honestly. I suspect it's the Arch. I suspect this is a leftover piece of Arch paper that I had from a larger piece I cut. I suspect, but I may be wrong. I'm not sure. Now, if you look at the colors, especially down below, that blue feels very artificial. That thing annoyed me to no end. So the solution, usually when the green looks artificial, it's too clean. It's too yellow and blue. So you usually need to add a bit of red, which is why it initially looked good, because I had some red on the palette that balanced it out, made it a bit brown, a bit orange even in some spots. So now I'm trying to alleviate that by putting in more yellow, but then eventually I'll put in a bit more red too. I don't mind putting in, you see how this paint pushes, especially on the left side. It pushes the paint that was there. That is fine. Nothing wrong with that. You know, cauliflowers, undesired effects, I don't really care. At the end of the day, if the values are on point, the drawing is somewhat accurate, it's going to look good. So I don't really care about effects as much. Now, I'm not a person that is really into these effects purposely. I never put salt on my painting, so maybe that's why it doesn't annoy me. Maybe someone else will be more sensitive to that and wouldn't like that, and that is perfectly fine. That's just not me. Now, I'm going to make kind of an effort to push this to completion. I don't feel like letting it dry, thinking about it. So I'm just continuing. I'm going to put in the dark background as well. Admittedly, I don't know why I didn't do as good of a job with the background. That's fine. That happens. We're really close to the end of this painting, and that's when I dropped the ball a bit. it happens. I really don't care about it as much. I did forget this little piece of, you know, violety purpley shape, putting that in a little sloppily, if I may add. And now you see I'm thinking, okay, how will I enhance this? Do I need more darkness? But it's not more darkness that I need. You'll see this is more artificial green. What I need is actually to darken the shadows on the focal point, under the tire. There are shadows there, they're not dark enough, that red is not dark enough. The grass is dark enough. It's as dark. That's me not reading the situation. I was so distracted by the sizing of the paper, or by, I don't know what you call that. It separates and then you get these uneven layers. I was so distracted by it and by how the paint didn't flow well there. I kind of lost the plot a bit, but that's fine. You'll see. It's a process. Now, the funny thing is, when I look at it now, it looks really good. So I'm gonna add these little, you know, fences, whatever. There's this fence, and then there are posts. Behind it, there's a black fence, and then there's shadows on a wall or something. So I'm gonna put all of that in. To me, I'm taking this to its completion, the background, as much as I can. And what's funny is, you know, even when you get the color pretty wrong in the background, as long as it still works with the rest of your colors, it's not going to be the end of the world, honestly. Here it just was a little jarring. So what I was missing here, because it's a lot of blue, what I was missing most after I'm done with this background and darkening it, I was missing a lot of yellow and red, aka just orange, to balance out this strong phthalo bluish, phthalo green kind of combination. You'll see me fix it slowly. See, I'm starting to bring in a bit of red there as well to the background. Just kind of learned that that's what I should have done maybe earlier. Of course, the grass should be darker on the upper parts. I still haven't darkened that enough. That is fine. It's an interesting pattern. Sometimes when I paint the thing that really interests me about the scene, it goes well. And then as soon as I step out into the background, I don't know if I like it as much. But yeah, I'm going to fix that now. I'm going to add in a bunch of yellow, just reset that green. That's way too strong. A bit of yellow, a bit of red on top of that will solve the color harmony. You'll notice it will start looking a little more, it'll match the red that we have in the center. And when I show you the scan, you'll see things do fall into place a little better. But that's part of it. That's part of, and I talked about this as well, painting in a reactionary manner, meaning I'm reacting to what's going on paper. I'm going to put the paint there. Does it look good? Does it make sense? Okay, let's push it towards the thing that it should look like in my imagination. Okay, so it needs more red, it needs more yellow, it needs more whatever. I'm going to try and add. You may not get the most graceful result. What you will know is how to find yourself when you lose yourself and when you get lost in the mixing. You'll know how to quickly find the right direction. For next time, it'll be much easier. So there's a lot of, I think, naturalness to working this way. I think it almost sets you up to succeed whenever you do make a more planned piece of art. Hopefully that makes sense. That's kind of a theory of mine. It's not confirmed. It's not science. I don't think it'll ever be science. Now the cool part is, now that I'm adding the darks, it flows a bit into the background because the background's still wet. So that's a nice little side effect or side benefit there. Now, don't expect everything around that wheel to make sense. Don't expect it to look accurate. I have not been expecting it to look that. All I care about is, did I get that center detail in? Hopefully that is not a disappointment to you, but that's pretty much what I cared about. Am I conveying the proper light and shadow on that rounded teeth wheel? Or I don't know if it's a cog even. It's not a cog. I think it's a part of some kind of a mechanism. But you'll let me know in the comment for sure. And I'll have like 10 comments explaining what it is. So thank you for that in advance. And yeah, so as long as I got that thing looking good, the rest I don't really care about. There's this little piece of, again, another piece of wood kind of placed in there. It would be interesting to make a more slow and accurate version of this one. It will be. Maybe I will give this a try. But yeah, continuing with that theme, darkening that side of, I don't know what it is, a metal piece, and then the darks on the orange details. Now, one thing that became apparent to me is, if I look at the metal pieces leading to the center of the wheel, they're not orange and bright enough. So what you'll see me very gradually do in a second is mixing a very, very light orange color to almost bring them back. You'll see. Now this is to convey that beveling shape. It goes like this, down and forward. So there's a curve in these metal pieces, and where it's curved, less light can reach in this specific one. So it's an interesting pattern. Again, when you understand it, it makes life a lot easier. Now I am pushing the shadows to be a little more orange. Remember how I told you they didn't feel orange enough? So that's me pushing it in that direction. The shadows, not the highlights I'm going to do in a second. But again, as I mentioned, in addition to that, I will have to push the lighter bits to be a little more orange. Again, if you compare the two, they're just more orange. If you look at, again, the center of the tire and where all these metal pieces connect, in my painting, you will see the difference. So I'm just shooting a few of these grass blades here and there. I do see some of them, and this brush is actually really good for that purpose, especially when it starts to dry a bit. You get this weird pattern to it. It's good for natural foliage, but again, the background it's not the best it could be. So I don't have too many, hopes for that. I'm just kind of placing a few details here and there. But look at this step here. Just bringing out a bit more of a clean orange there is going to really put it in the right context. And you'll see when I switch to the final scan, I think it will surprise you. I think it'll look really good to you. Also there, now that I have this paint and I'm going to use it here and there strategically, could probably use it on the side of the wheel where the jagged edge is, and I kind of missed that. That's fine. Kind of bringing out some more of the darks that I feel like have dry to light. There was a bit of a kind of diagonal shadow there, and signing this is the end result. And let me share with you the scan as well. And hopefully that makes sense and the process was enjoyable and maybe you learned something new. But in any case, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to check out, as I mentioned, the frustration-free watercolor course if you want to learn how to let go, enjoy the painting process. You'll get beautiful results. That freedom brings a lot of beautiful results with it. You will lose yourself a bit, that is fine. You will end up painting too boldly. You will not do things in the right balance for you, but you will find your footing at the end of the day and it will work. So check it out, link in the description box below. Also link to the Watercolor Realism course if you do struggle with creating that feeling of realism, mostly in black and white, keeping it simple. I'm going to show you shapes, values, edges, all the different components and how they work together. Some very unique exercises to bring that out of you. And yeah, I hope you'll give it a go. And lastly, I want to thank everyone who supports me over on Patreon. You make it possible for me to make tons of free content for everyone. So thank you so much for that. There are a couple of exclusive processes there. There will be more, some exclusive previews here and there of things I'm working on. Thank you so much. We'll see you in the next video. Take care.